We are up. Episode number 16, part 2 of part 1, which was episode 15 with Clay Hinchman.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Perfect.
Again, I like to say that I get paid by episode, which I don't pay myself.
There you go.
But it's important to me to get my episode count up, which then means part 1, part 2. I don't want to call it episode 15, part 2, right? Just it'll get confusing to people.
A and B, it
A
doesn't
and
matter.
B.
It's good. It's good.
So Clayton Hinchman sitting across from me. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Let's talk about the 4th of July. Today is July 6th. It's a Wednesday.
Yep.
The 4th was a Monday. It was a kind of heard someone kind of complaining that it can really mess you up if you're used to, holidays on a Monday. It kind of feels like an extension of the weekend. Is it Tuesday? Is it Wednesday? Some people get ahead of themselves. Some people get behind. But, as far as vacations leading into the 4th, extending a vacation.
Yep.
Summertime, sometimes it's hard to get back into the swing of things when you easily get out. But what did your family do?
We just had a barbecue, man. I smoke meat on weekends in the summertime. Right. I grew up with 2 smokers and a grill and a third smoker to make sure that the other 2 worked. So, you smoke meat on weekends, and that's about it. No, we had a pool party. The kids had fun. We had a couple of cocktails, had some friends over, and we just celebrate, and then we fired off fireworks, in random places, But we're not I'm not big into fireworks, but the kids like a little sparkler, from time to time. So, but that was it, man. Just spending time with family, making sure you spend time with family and friends.
So you piqued my interest with smoking meat. Mm-hmm. I actually just had to get rid of my propane smoker. I know I'm in the market for a better one, but talk me through some of your specialties.
Oh man, I'm you're always perfecting it, right? You never. So I like ribs a lot. I've been trying to do briskets more. I ruined my brisket on July 4th. I was very upset. I tried to do it for 16 hours, but the meat was actually pretty thin, and I overcooked it. And I was like emotionally distraught. I don't know, people that are into barbecue, I was emotionally distraught that my brisket was dry. But I smoke sausage, slice it up. That's not a thing in Alabama, by the way. They don't do sausage. Yeah. It's not a thing, right? So when I first moved here, over a decade ago, I said, let me get some sausage, some pulled pork, and they laughed at me. And but Texans, we started with a lot of sausage and ribs, pork ribs, baby back ribs. My wife loves them. That's pretty much the staple in our house.
So what happened with making it dry? You just had it in too long?
The meat was thin.
Okay.
And I thought I could get away with cooking it slower and slower, but I have a pellet grill, and it ended up cooking a little bit higher than 220, and it just kind of dried it out a little bit. It wasn't too bad, had a good smoke ring, but I'm a perfectionist, so it didn't.
You have a probe in there, and there's on Bluetooth, and it alerts you at temperature.
No, I didn't do that. I keep a just old school meat thermometer in there, and it wasn't getting above. It wasn't getting to like 190, and then eventually it ended up getting dried out. I screwed it up. My fault. So
here's what I love to do: an entire chub of bologna. Have you done that yet?
I've heard this, but no.
It's awesome. Real quick, you score the meat vertically, kind of about an inch apart. Just start at the top on the lengthwise on the whole chub, right? And you're going to go to the deli, and it's going to take a few times for you for them to understand what you're asking for. You're like, hey, I want that whole chub of bologna. Okay, well, how do you want that sliced? I don't want it sliced.
Yeah, no.
Just put a sticker on it. Wait a minute. And then the manager comes over. What is it you want, sir?
Yeah.
I just want that entire chub of bologna.
Yeah.
And then they laugh. Oh, I've heard of that, But so you score the meat lengthwise. Then you turn it, and then you do the same thing the other way, and you go down about I don't know, half an inch.
Yeah.
And then that helps it just to really, as it gets warmer, it'll just kind of expand.
Yep.
It'll kind of look like like a pineapple or something in a way when it's done. But then in the end, you usually do about 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
At like 250. But that last 30 minutes, you crank it up to like 325.
Oh, yeah.
It'll really char the outside.
Yeah.
I guess Memphis is known for that. Memphis, like for their bologna.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
I guess Nashville's famous for the hot chicken sandwich or whatever.
Yeah, just hot chicken in general, yeah.
But Memphis is known for their bologna.
Nashville, we went there years ago and had hot chicken mac and cheese. And I was
really?
like, but I believe there's 400 billion calories in this one meal that I ate, and it was worth every bite. I had a coronary after that, but it was, Every once in a while, it's all right.
Yeah,
Not
sure.
bad.
It's like a blooming onion, like has what, 5,000 calories?
Yeah, whatever that. Yeah, that thing's pretty good.
So that's a cool shirt. Your Ignite shirt in the Americana theme.
Yeah, thank you.
I like that. Is that new this year?
Yeah, no, we actually made these for the 4th of July. So one of our young ladies that, one of our program managers, she does a lot of our social media marketing and stuff. And so she ended up, where usually it's like a white letter or black with a green G right here.
Yeah.
And the G was always a power button. So that's why our G is a little bit different. And some people don't always see it when we wear this shirt. They're like, what's I-Night? And I'm like, oh, it's Ignite. But because it's I-G with the green G and then night. But, yeah, we made the American flag shirts, and everybody actually had them on today. And nobody coordinated it, but everybody had them on. And people were wearing them 4th of July. They washed them, and they wore them again. But, everybody seemed to like them. They worked out.
It seems like it's a function of a couple things. One would be, pride in their employer. And then 2, they like free stuff. They like swag.
Oh, yeah, everybody likes free stuff. You got free food, free booze, free shirts. No, actually, so part of guerrilla marketing, and I'm probably misusing that term, but I will spend more money on comfortable stuff so that people wear it more.
Yeah.
I'll spend a few extra dollars on a polo or a T-shirt because people will wear it more because it's more comfortable. And so that's just been a part of what we've done, for the past 11, 12 years since I started my first company. And it was like I just said, hey, get something that people would like and they'd like to wear. And if you, instead of buying a cheaper cotton shirt for $2, pay $6 for a shirt or what, I don't even know what it is, right? And just so people, it's more comfortable. And I have an awkward body. I've got big shoulders, so I can't you give me a regular T-shirt, it always fits uncomfortably. I got to have a double extra large shirt just so it kind of fits comfortably and so I guess that's also because I'm a diva. So, I don't know.
That's funny. I was going to buy you a Houston Oilers shirt, and I might still do it.
Yes.
But then I started thinking, is it extra large or double X?
No, double X. You go extra large with me, it always ends up being like an extra medium shirt, right? And then the shoulders look okay, and then my belly sticks out. And I'm like, wait, let's get a little padding in here. You don't need all that.
So there's 2 things I want to do before we launch into the reason we're doing part 2 is we didn't really we had the time, but we kind of ran out of time.
Yeah.
And we never really got a chance to talk about present day Ignite. Present day meaning probably the last 10 years, right, of your life.
Yeah.
But before I do that, just a note to viewers, things are going to look a little different behind Clay. I kind of moved the American flag over to now behind his right shoulder, moved the astronaut picture right behind him. We have new desks. My desks were getting kind of flimsy. My wife sat in here last week and was like commenting on how sometimes the microphones will shake because there were just some like cheap card tables. And then just in the progression of things, right, as you improve week to week. And I hate it because I felt like I was getting to a point where things were pretty repeatable.
Yeah.
Repeatable is a good word for like the CMMI type stuff.
That's processes,
like layer 2, right? It's repeatable. And then you have to go and muck with things and bring in new furniture. I had to rewire everything in the studio, but ultimately I think it worked out okay.
Oh, that's good here.
So you just hinted at USi was your first company.
Yep.
Let's go there. So last week, part 1, we ended with you coming out into Walter Reed. You talked about Tran, your roommate. And that's kind of where we ended things, kind of in the recovery process, therapy, everything that went into the multiple surgeries to kind of get you able to back into the workforce, if you will, right, into society and what's Clayton going to do.
Yep.
Let's go into, I think it was you and your wife. Tell the story about the from the inception to kind of developing and going with USi.
Yeah, so when I lost my leg, it was 2008, and when I got to Walter Reed, obviously you meet a lot of, unfortunately, you meet a lot of amputees, military, and then, soon retired, right, type people, and great Americans. You meet these great people that are trying to figure out what life is supposed to look like right after you're wounded, pretty bad. There was a gentleman named Bob Nielsen. Bob Nielsen was a Vietnam veteran, Marine, and he was a platoon commander, and I don't think he was a company commander, platoon commander, infantry guy, and he was the international president of Turner Construction. He was now retired in 2008, and Bob Nielsen, great great man, great patriot, still giving back to America. But he retired from Turner Construction, and he was at Walter Reed, and he would come by and talk about entrepreneurship to veterans. And I don't know what it was. There's like, I don't know, 17 E's in that. I don't know. Right. And so, I had been picked up for Special Forces selection. So I thought I was going to come home and go to SFAS, and then I'm going to go be a Green Beret, okay, and then do maybe some other stuff. And then I get wounded, and so that doesn't happen. So now what am I going to do with my life? Well, Bob was at Walter Reed, and he was training. He has something called the 100 Entrepreneurs Program, and I'm messing that up. Sorry, Bob. And but he started putting these nuggets on our head, and me and Tran would go to it, and it was about, what are you going to do when you get out, right? Because it's going to happen. You got to get out. If it's now or even 20 years from now, you're going to get out. And he started talking about entrepreneurship, and I had this nugget in the back of my brain of going like, maybe I could do this, right? And so I couldn't get a job. I couldn't get an internship at first because it took me a year and a half to get out of Walter Reed. And so I ended up getting my master's at night from Georgetown in policy. It was a Joint Chiefs program, and I was able to finagle my way in there. So I'm learning to walk again, and I start this master's program, and I got a job at a place called JIEDO, the Joint IED Center. Mm-hmm. And I was going to be an analyst to defeat IEDs. And, when that happened, I kind of laughed about it because the guy that hired me was a retired Marine pilot, helicopter pilot. Yeah. And when I went in for the interview, he was like, "You want to be an IED analyst?" And I was like, "Dan, I'm not very good at finding IEDs. I only found one, and I stepped on the fucking thing, And so he laughed, and he's like, "You're hired." So I got this job. And while I was doing that, I ended up waiting for my TSSCI to go through, right? My above top secret, whatever you call it. Mm-hmm. And I was working for the budget chief, who was a Navy P-3 pilot in Vietnam, was a reconnaissance pilot. And great man, great mentor. And I was so naive. I'm 27 years old, and I'm sitting there at JIEDO, and I'm listening to program managers talk about money every single day.
Where was JIEDO, by the way?
So I was actually at the COIC. It was called the Counter IED Operations Integration Center. It's in Northern Virginia. JIEDO is near Arlington-ish, right? Right. And we were a covert, overt facility.
Okay.
Right?
Fair enough.
So, anyway, so I'm working for the budget chief, and I'm listening. I could sell you this jug of hot tea for $5 million. Because if I said it defeated an IED, the government was going to buy it in 2009, right? We all saw this. Well, I used to get frustrated because, the IED is just a close ambush, right? It's a part of another asymmetric system that we now know, right? And I would tell my boss, I'm like, that doesn't help the warfighter, right? And so I have a lot of other stories, and I won't get into it, but I became very disenfranchised with how we were spending money and how people just talked about money. And I thought, I can do this better. I'm just arrogant enough. I've got good mentors. Bob Nielsen's been telling me to start a company. So I ended up working at the Military Officer Association to finish my master's, but I always knew I was going to start my own company. And I advocated on Capitol Hill for veterans and their family members with MOA, Military Officer Association, and finished my master's degree. And shortly after finishing, about almost 3 years later, I ended up starting my own company while I was working this nonprofit. And was able to land a couple of small deals. And shortly thereafter, I sold my house. I bought a house online, and I moved to Huntsville, Alabama. Right. And I had been here like once. And that is, was my wife happy? No. I had a 6-month-old daughter when I did it. Like I said, was my wife happy? No. Did she fully understand? No. But I guess there was just a trust, or there was an intensity in my eyes that said, this is happening, and either you believe or you don't. And but I also gave a backstop. I said, look, we'll be closer to family because my wife's from Georgia. And I said, look, if I can't make something happen in 2 years, that was my backstop. I said, I'll go get a job. Right. So just let's give it a shot. Let's see what we're made of. And let's give it a go. And, my wife, Leslie, bought into it.
So you were doing likely a ton of research or checking with your contacts in that time with MOA and before you really launched your company. To kind of give you that confidence?
Yeah.
Was there a couple key relationships or contacts that you made along the way that kind of led to that?
Yeah. So one of our first contracts, we did a subcontract, which was me billing, right, sure, as a subcontractor under DARPA to a big firm. And it wasn't a big gig, didn't pay a lot, but it got us a little past performance. Sure. And then The second one was the USO, and we did all of the infrastructure upgrades to the USO, the nonprofit. And I knew, so my idea for starting USi was everything runs on IT, right? I'm not an IT guy background, but everything runs on IT, from software to hardware to whatever it is. You need the IT and the infrastructure. So I thought, if I can get in and use some relationships to build infrastructure background, right, past performance, then we can leverage that to break into other things. And the USO gave us that, and it paid us a tiny bit of money.
Yeah.
And that's what helped us get started. And I moved to Huntsville. We had no follow-on contracts. We just packed up and moved. And I said, I'm going to go into this full steam ahead. And then we just went for it.
So did you have to hire additional employees when you landed that infrastructure upgrade work?
Oh yeah, so I made a lot of friends, right, and made sure that they were going to be paid adequately. The research I had done on pricing to make sure that people could be paid appropriately.
Right.
I didn't own a house. I had to take on an investor originally, paid him back in about 9 months, but. I had built a network, I guess, of people that not only needed work done, but people that could do the work, right? Because I didn't want to oversell and have somebody hire us and then fall flat on my face.
Right.
And that almost happened, a couple times, right? But we always seemed to pull it off and had backup plans and backup plans to backup plans, and we were able to figure everything out.
So then you you come down here, you moved to Huntsville. Now talk about kind of new contracts or new customers that you acquired, kind of upon arrival here.
Yeah. So, we started reaching out, going to chamber events, going to Leadership Huntsville, going to Committee of 100, all these great networking organizations around here. And I always tell people that, Huntsville welcomed us with open arms.
Yeah.
I had lunch with a guy today, and I said, "Look, you're doing all the right things. It's not going to happen tomorrow,
right?
But I'm not from here, and I came down here, but I showed up prepared. I was respectful of people's time. I respected what they had done to get to where they're going, and I've got a lot of people that I know that are West Point classmates or wherever, and they went to top tier schools, and they look at every company as dollars and cents. And I try to tell them, I know what you're doing when you're coming to EBITDA formulas or whatever. I know what you're doing, right? I understand the math behind it. I understand the finance. If you speak disrespectfully to people who have spent 40 years building a company, you're done.
Right.
You're done. These people have put their heart and soul, their blood, their sweat, their tears. They've sacrificed family time to make this happen. Now, I'm not saying you're going to come to a different number, but there's a point of communication of how you deal with people that have done that, right? So, but yeah, Huntsville welcomed me with open arms, and I tried to be as respectful I could to people. We had a lot of, it's funny, when you get wounded, lose a leg, there are a lot of sometimes retired people or just regular people that want to talk to you about combat. And I don't mind talking about it, but I'm not 100% disabled. I don't get like a maxed out check from the VA or whatever. Okay. So I gotta earn, I gotta work. I got a wife. I got children. Yeah. I got a mortgage. And so that was always in the back of my brain of like, I got to work. And so people would sometimes waste my time, and I never meant to be rude, but I'm like, can we talk about business? Because I got bills to pay. And so that continued to push me and force me into, let's talk about real business. And some of the best meetings I had were, government or whomever saying, hey, look, I got requirements. I got no money.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, word up. Great to meet you.
Yeah.
Let's talk in the future.
Put it in the pipeline.
Yeah. But if they don't have any funds or resources to solve problems, their pain points are moot at that point, because there's nothing you can do to help them because they don't have the financial means to support them. And let me backtrack real quick.
Sure.
When I worked at Jaido, a lot of great people there, and I wasn't trying to bash anybody, but I was so young and naive and ignorant. I didn't understand, if they are not talking about money with their government customers, a program manager, they can't pay their people. They can't support the warfighter, right? And so I was this dumb kid thinking, oh, I know more about the warfighter because I was there. But these individuals were really trying to solve problems. But if they don't have the resources, if they've hit their contract ceiling, right? If they haven't changed the period of performance, they honestly they legally can't do it.
That's right.
Either, right? And so I didn't know that when I was 27 years old. And it took some pain points for me to go, okay, I was probably a jackass. Well, I probably wasn't. I was, because I didn't understand the nuances of some of the federal contracting or even commercial contracting that some of these individuals have to go through to really solve problems.
I relocated to Huntsville 6 months ago. I was just running a really large program, and sometimes you would work, the head, the chief, if you will, for the government staff would understand things like that, right? Or you're working with a COTR that understands, hey, we're coming up at the end of the period of performance, or we're gonna have to go at risk or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then there was most of the line managers didn't get that, and there came some times where we're saying, hey, listen, on Tuesday, if we don't get the funding or we don't get an extension, no one's coming to work. And like, what do you mean? Like, it's a contract, man. We legally cannot come to work.
Yeah, it's a legal thing, and you have to explain it to people. It's like, I can't, if we support you and we don't have a contract, that doesn't mean at risk. Right. That doesn't mean that I don't have funding. If I legally don't have a period of performance or whatever that says I can work, the government views what I'm doing as a gift, and that's illegal for us as igniters to do that for you, right? And so you just have to communicate, right? It's a hard communication sometimes. Like, oh, you're telling us you won't do something. It's like, we legally can't. Yeah. We legally can't do that. It's against the federal acquisition regulation. We can't do it.
That's right. So you also get there's those times where, very frustrating at times to be a contractor, right? But the government's got a million things going on. But there were times where, let's say there's an extension, we're going to get a contract extension, and they have to go off of like a draft letter contract. Well, in that period of time, you can't invoice. Yep. So here you are. We get 2 months into it.
Yep.
And some of our, Mantech, we can handle it.
Yeah.
We can handle going into the hole, and we'll pay people out of profit, if you will, until we can make amends. But there's some small companies. They racked up. If they have 12, 13 people on your contract.
Yep.
Over 2 months, that's a significant amount of money. Yeah. And they're trying to go to their lenders asking for a loan, a bridge loan, if you will. And they're like, well, do you have any sort of documentation showing that it's going to happen? No.
Nope. Yep. No.
Puts you in a really tough spot.
No, 100%.
But the law's a law.
Yep.
So USi, now let's talk about at some point you hit your stride, right? And you start growing. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then ultimately to the point where like, hey, we're going to sell this. Yeah,
so my wife and I were running it, which was a lot of friction in our home, by the way. But, because I'd work all day and then I would come home to my wife who's raising children and then would talk about finance with me. And I'm like, yo, can I get a break?
Watch Seinfeld?
Yeah. And so it was, we had about 55 employees. And we were doing various software work, IT work, network operations support, different stuff. Primarily Army customers, some state and local.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine I'd met a buddy of mine I'd met through a network, and he was now the president and CEO of Ignite. Had a different name at the time, predecessor, but they'd been in business for 14 years, and this is 6 years ago now. And one of my mentors said, hey, would you be interested in merging? I think you guys could be dangerous. And I said, yeah, I'd be interested in it, right? The new federal healthcare mandate was changing things if you had over 50 employees, and it's just me and my wife. This company, Ignite already has infrastructure. So, yeah, I'd be willing to discuss it. So, we had some pretty frank conversations, and I have some buddies who do MBAs from Harvard, and they were going to give me their hockey stick curve. And I was like, that's bullshit. That's not what we're doing.
Hockey stick.
And I said, look, man, I'll take a multiple on my EBITDA formula, right? My earnings. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, look, I'll take a multiple. You buy me, and then you buy the company. Right. And it was industry standard. It was middle of the road industry standard on a services company. I had done my own research. I had done a lot of research, and I said, I think this is fair and reasonable. And, we were able to come to an agreement, and I was able to do it to where the company did not take on any additional debt. I didn't want to hurt the company. And basically there's a note to me, right? That's basically what it was.
Yeah.
And I had a commit from the company that I had a job for 5 years. So they bought me, and then they bought the company and owned the rights. And then I can successfully say that I basically paid for myself more than once over with the work that we had. But I don't regret it. The one regret I have is that I lost control of kind of my destiny. And shortly thereafter, I actually broke my hip at White Sands Missile Range on my amputated side. Long story, but the previous owner, who's still my buddy, still a great guy, board member, we kind of had differences of what we wanted to do with the company and our motivations, and he had some health issues too, and it just kind of changed the dynamic because I didn't have full control, right? And when you don't have control, and an arrogant turd like me. I know I'm right, and so it became frustrating for me after a while, and then but luckily 2.5 years ago I bought him out, and I'm majority shareholder of Ignite, and we're 49% employee owned, so it's all good now. So
that's awesome. How many employees do you have at Ignite now?
We're still under 200 employees.
That's good,
right? So we're getting there. We won a contract last week at PEO Missiles and Space as a sub to the Integrated Fires and Rapid Capabilities Office, and then we were awarded an IDIQ as a major sub to a good prime of ours that are at the FBI, and then we have a couple of other opportunities with DIA and FBI that we've won in the past couple of months, and so some of them are hunting licenses, right? BPAs, IDIQs. Yep. And some of them we have some substantial work share, so it's an exciting time to be an Igniter, and we're trying to hit our stride, right?
Yeah, and before you came here, you had an event at Main Event with your employees.
Oh well, yeah, our corporate staff, yeah. Okay. So we have a few new corporate folks, and I realized that we've all been running and gunning so hard. I've been in D.C. and Eglin and Colorado Springs and and a lot of people are traveling, and we've got some new corporate people that just don't see us because we're gone.
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of people on overhead, right? Maybe 15, I guess, 16, I don't know. And so, and I say that, not that I don't know, but some of our overhead people are still billing on, right? Like we've got vice presidents that are still billing, and
sure.
So really we only have 11 total people on overhead. But I realized some of them, and so I said, hey, we need to have an event because we're just running too hard. I need some of our new corporate overhead people to see us like act as human beings, not these short interactions.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of cocktails, bowled a little bit, and I think they're still playing video games or something like that right now. But I'd already destroyed them so bad at bowling. They didn't want to play me anymore. I'm too good.
Isn't it crazy that Main Event opens up here in Huntsville, and there's a Dave & Buster's just down the road, not too far away, and then Dave & Buster's buys Main Event.
I did not know that.
$850 million.
Hey, there you go. Yeah.
It was literally like 6 days after their ribbon cutting and they're open, and it doesn't really change anything, but it is interesting in the Huntsville market because typically you maybe have one of those locations in a city, but not both, and not a mile apart.
Yeah, but there's also Stars and Strikes.
Yeah. That's
right down the street.
Yeah.
There's Top Golf now. I mean, this is getting ridiculous. It's ridiculous all of that North Alabama has to offer.
Right.
I mean, really, this is, I had a meeting with our soon to be Congressman Dale Strong, who won the Republican primary and not too long ago, and I said, man, this is the number one place in America, and now you're seeing more cranes in Huntsville, and you're seeing all of these great community type, I don't know if Main Event's Dave & Buster's community event, but places for people to go with their families.
Absolutely.
Because you got to have that. I mean, my daughters are 7 and 10, and you got to have a spot where you can just say, you know what, we're bored, Netflix is whatever, let's get out of the house, let's get, and go out. And so it's great to have a lot of investment in the community where you see people that are, or companies, right, that are making an investment in, what we're trying to do here. So.
Yeah, sometimes people will be critical of any city. There's nothing to do. Well, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
But, my mom and my aunt are actually in town, and they went to the caverns. There's this.
Oh, yeah.
There's an amazing cavern, I guess. It's
over by Scottsboro.
Yeah. No, it's on the southeast side.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
I don't know exactly.
They run a race there.
Do
my
they?
wife runs. It's like a 5K or something.
In
They
the
run
cavern?
it's a 5K, and then my oldest daughter ran that with her this past year.
Oh,
yeah.
that's cool. But just one more thing, right? We're like, we have everything. We even have a cavern. You know, just, there's things like that exist in other places, but like you were just going through the list of everything we have. The amphitheater's new.
Oh yeah,
and then just kind of what you can do if your family comes in town or whatever.
I've got buddies, right, that live in Philly, Denver, Los Angeles. You know where they live. You know, they live everywhere, right? We're all former military govies, whatever. They live a lot of different places, and they come and visit me, and they're like, "This is Alabama."
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. It's like when y'all come to Texas and you think everybody rides a damn horse. Like, no, right? Like there's communities here. There's people live here, you know. And you know, my wife and I lived in D.C. for a total of probably 5 years, right?
Right.
They're the national capital region. And even then you're like, I'm bored. There's nothing to do. And it's like, well,
there's plenty to do.
There's plenty to do. Get up and go make something of your life. Get off of your stupid phone.
Right.
Get off of your stupid iPad. Right, turn it off and go like figure out what there is to do in your community. Because I guarantee you, there's 2 great lakes here.
Yeah.
Right, Gunnersville and Smith Lake.
Huge.
I think Gunnersville is like one of the #1 fishing hubs in America. People don't know that. There's great hunting. There's all these hills in Alabama. Coming from Texas, I didn't realize how hilly Alabama really was. Right, and the very southern tip of the Appalachian Trail. Right, is just south of Chattanooga, is in you know, in Madison County actually, and so you see all these great things to do, but you got to open your eyes and pull your head out, right?
Yeah.
Like look for it.
So let's talk about motivation a little bit. I know in other interviews you've talked about how you've had to channel the pain that you still feel, you know, on your short side as you refer to it.
Yeah.
But what are some of those, or there's some people along the way that have really motivated you and helped shape Clayton as the CEO, right? As a leader, company owner, you know, working hard. I think you've always had that work ethic, but have there been people in your life or other ways you motivate yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you know, last time we talked about the young man in Vail.
Yeah.
That I wasn't going to feel sorry for myself.
Right.
But you know, I guess when it comes to I have a restless spirit. I guess, you know, just my upbringing. I had to be engaged. All of those things. You know, you go to a service academy. You're carrying 24 whatever credited hours plus a sport plus drill plus whatever. So
wow.
I've always been very active, and you know, I'm trying to think. So many great mentors have been a part of my life. And I met a gentleman named Sloan Gibson, and forgive me, I'm using his name, but he was the president of the USO when I was at Walter Reed, and I met him through a random connection. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to figure out my life in Walter Reed, and there was a great guy named Rick, and he introduced me to Sloan, and Sloan had a home in Georgetown, and I guess you'd call it a mansion? I don't know.
Sure.
Right, but he had a nice home, great wife, 2 beautiful daughters. I think they were in their 20s at the time, and I'd only met one. And Sloan was the CFO and vice chairman of AmSouth Bank before Regions bought them.
Okay,
right, or merged. I'm not exactly sure when that was, but Sloan was a West Point grad, had done some time in the Army, and then went into finance. And he told me he never really like picked finance. It just kind of happened for him through his network. And he kept pushing himself to go farther and farther and farther. And I was having dinner at Sloan's house when I first met him. He said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a senator one day. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And he was like, well, I don't know anything about that. Right. And he made a comment about the income level that he was making at AmSouth Bank before he left, and he basically said, you can do that and give back to your community. And he pivoted from what he made to he was able to raise like $50 million in 1 year for the Red Cross.
Gotcha.
And then he was able to retire from AmSouth, and he owns a great home like in downtown Charleston, this old historic, I think the Postmaster General's house, right?
Oh wow.
And I think he sold his home in Georgetown, but he was able to do what he did at AmSouth, and then he was able to pivot to helping the Red Cross, and then he became the president of the USO and was able to travel the world. And, you know, he kind of served right pre-Cold War. ish, right? Before the 80s. So it was Cold War, but not, I guess it's what I would think of it as, right? And so he was able to make some money, set up his family, but then he was able to give back. And that struck me, right? It struck me like, okay, you can build wealth for you and your family,
right?
But you can also help other people do it that are part of your team. Oh, and you can give back to your community and the country, and be a patriot. And that's what he did. And it stuck out to me because my career was cut short, and I felt like I hadn't done enough. I mean, I remember having a breakdown once because my buddies were Green Berets, and I wasn't fighting bad guys anymore. And I was like, what am I doing here? What was I meant to do? And now I realize that, God kind of put me on a different path, and I've taken what I've been given and kind of tried to run with it. But I would be here all day if I mentioned all the mentors. Sloan was one of the first people that stuck out to me. And then when it comes to mentors in business, Mike Durant here locally with Pinnacle Solutions has been a friend and mentor for a decade. And I respect Mike not only for the Battle of Mogadishu and what he did there, but who he is as a person and what he, kind of talked to me about how he set up his company. But you've got a lot of great companies here, the Torches, the Intuitives, the Radiances, the Colsas. There's a lot of great companies that are doing global work in Huntsville. And a lot of people don't know that, right? Because our marketing's a little bit different. And we don't really publish it as much, right? We're not the Googles, and we're not a consumer market, right?
Yeah.
But there's, a lot of different friends. But Sloan sticks out. Mike Durant sticks out to me when I moved to Huntsville. Was very, and I've never done business with him. Completely different business models, but some of the processes and the way that he looked at himself, as I've tried to mimic some of those things.
Those are, you're the kind of guy that motivates me. When then there's people that I look to in different stories. Mike Durant would be another one, right? We're just amazing stories, and persevering, overcoming, and and I would say, why can't I just keep going, right? Why can't I give back? And I like what Sloan, I think, was saying is, hey, build a really strong foundation, build up what you can, you take care of your family, and then you can kind of extend yourself, leverage your reputation, right, and what you've built to then help in a myriad of ways. Yeah,
when I lost my leg, my mother, there's people that want free houses and stuff. I don't want to say free stuff. Look, I know too many quadruple amputees, people with TBIs that have serious injuries, people that deal with serious post-traumatic stress.
Right.
Some of those individuals need serious support, right? And I will donate, I will give time, treasure, talent, all that stuff. But people like me, I don't deal with post-traumatic stress. I didn't have a traumatic brain injury. I'm just missing a leg. I'm above the knee amputee. Big deal, right? So, my mother was like, well, you could go get a free house, and you could go do this, and you could bother the VA to get more stuff or whatever. And I was like, nah, I'm good. Like, we'll shake on it. Me and the VA and the federal government, we'll shake hands on it.
Right.
You pay for my hearing aids. You reimburse me for my prosthetics. We're legit. I'm moving on. And I said something to her, it's probably super arrogant, but I said, what's more American? Me walking around to my community members, because a lot of community members are building these homes. It's not the government. It's the community members that are donating to individuals, right, that need it.
Right.
And I said, what's more American? Me walking around with my hand out, expecting the taxpayer and expecting my community to give me free stuff, or because I can function, I just walk with a limp. Stairs are a bit hard, right? Yeah. But I walk with a limp. I'm a fully functioning member of society, right? I am disabled, okay? And I go build what I want, and I earn it, and I do what I want with my money, right? If I want to give back to the community, if I want to build a big house, if I want to do whatever, what's more American?
Right.
Right? And to me, I'm sorry, it's the latter. It really is, right? And I'm not saying that there are individuals that don't need support, because they do, and I don't want to take away from that. But, I was completely fully functioning, and like I said, that young man in Vail, some of these individuals need support, and I was like, nope, I'm good, right? I got a paper cut on my leg. We'll strap the leg on, put my big boy pants on, and get back to work, because I told you before, my friends are gone, and I know they're looking down on me, and they're expecting me to earn my way in the world, and that's what I'm trying to live up to, and then also teach my daughters. I don't really know any other way.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I want to read something that I wanted to read last week.
Okay.
And this is
You're scaring me because you pulled up my Angleton High School days.
I know, right? Oh, I need to switch over. And I need to switch. Okay. So this is from the 81st Texas Legislature.
Oh.
And it says, whereas United States Army Captain Robert Clayton Hinchman of Angleton is an outstanding young American who is indeed worthy of recognition for his accomplishments while serving in this nation's armed forces. And whereas a 2001 graduate of Angleton High School, Clayton Hinchman accepted an appointment to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, where he was commissioned a second lieutenant on graduation. After serving as a rifle platoon leader for 22 months, he was injured on May 10th, 2008, losing a leg to a roadside bomb during a night operations air assault mission northeast of Baghdad. Today, Captain Hinchman is once again leading an active life with the assistance of a state-of-the-art computerized leg, and he is continuing to serve as an officer while completing his recovery at Walter Reed Army Medical Center. This strong and caring soldier also recently spent time helping kindergarten students at a school field day in his hometown. And whereas, although the Purple Heart was one award he never wanted to earn, Captain Clayton Hinchman is an inspiration to all who know him, and he has earned the gratitude and admiration of his fellow Americans for his remarkable strength, courage, and patriotism. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the House of Representatives of the 81st Texas Legislature hereby commend Captain Robert Clayton Hinchman for his valiant service to our country and extend to him sincere best wishes for the future, and be it further resolved that an official copy of this resolution be prepared for Captain Hinchman as an expression of high regard by the Texas House of Representatives.
I don't know where you find this stuff.
You've never heard that?
I know what this is. Scroll down. I think does somebody sign it? I think.
Well, this is just a PDF.
Oh, that's the resolve.
I think it's just the copy.
Resolution.
So
I helped the local kindergarten do a field day, and I remember that. And I had one so what sticks out to me? I remember this field day. Mm-hmm. Right. This is 100 million years ago. There was a little boy, and he had broken his lower arm, so he had a cast on it, right? And all the teachers, and I didn't know them, all my teachers were a little bit older now at this point, and I remember this. It was close to my brother's house, and there was a little boy who had a cast on his arm, and they were playing a game where you had to throw a ball.
Okay.
And his hand, he had the cast, so he couldn't hold the ball, right? And I said, throw with your other hand. And one of the teachers were like, oh, he can't. His hand's hurt. And I looked at him and I was like, can you throw that other hand? And he looked at me and goes, yes, sir. And he went out there and chunked that ball. And I was like, word. And I gave him a fist bump. And he went on and he was beating everybody at races or whatever. And I didn't say anything motivating to him. I just didn't tell him he can't do something.
Right.
I looked at him and I was like, word up. Your right hand's messed up. Can you throw with the other hand? Yes. Or at least, can you try? And he tried, and he did it, and then he just went on, and he was kicking people's butt. And I was I was trying to exude confidence to this young person, right? Hey, look, man, I'm a cripple, whatever you want to call me, right? But you're not going to treat me that way because I'm still going to whoop your butt. Yeah. So if you want to party, then I'm here to party. And that always stuck out to me, and I've tried to mimic that with lots of young people. You can only go with what you got, right? But you still got to show up.
Are there kids like him who have reached out to you or kind of sought after you to give thanks to you, years later on, hey, thanks a lot. That meant a lot to me. It changed my life.
Yeah, I've had a few. I mean, I've had people that have reached out to me, and I hate to say this, even grown-ups too. I've had people that have talked to me and said, you said a thing or you did a thing to me and it meant so much to me. And I'll be honest, sometimes I've forgotten, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just how I live my life.
Yeah.
And when they tell me, I'm like, oh snap, I remember that, right? But you I meet a lot of people, right? And I'm not,
Sure.
I'm a CEO. I network a lot, right? I hire smart people. They do smart stuff, right? And I go back to networking and trying to do what I do. And I make sure resources are there and the networks are there for my team to do good stuff. But yeah, I've randomly got people, and I just hope, I've given speeches to big crowds or small crowds, and I always look at this, the enthusiasm is always the same. And my wife's an introverted accountant. She thinks I'm a psychopath. Like, how do you stand up in front of people? And I tell her, like, if I connect with one person and change them, it's all worth it, right? I'll sacrifice my life to make sure that our future generations, we have been able to touch one person, because you don't know what that one person is going to do. Mm-hmm. You don't know what that one life is going to do, right? You don't know where people come from these extreme odds, and then, they create whatever, or they have an effect on other people's lives. And I want that to be a positive effect. And that's what, I'm trying to do, but it happens from time to time,
Can you talk about this computerized leg? I've heard that mentioned, not just on that resolution, but I've heard that in other articles. You had this. It's good because Clay has the most state-of-the-art computerized leg. How many different versions of a prosthetic have you had?
So I use how many versions? I've had lots of. I've broken all of them. I break lots of stuff. I snowboard, but it's just with a bike shock. It's a terrible leg, but I'm a transfemoral amputee, which means I have half my right femur.
Okay.
So how to keep your balance is really, really, it's difficult, and I can't get into it because I'm not that smart. But if I had a full femur, I could put more pressure and weight on the bottom of my leg, but I can't because so my socket, which is the top part, have to capture stuff. Computerized legs, they're not cool. Like everybody, you got a computerized leg, but really all it means is I get a little bit of pressure and a little bit of resistance so I can walk downstairs. It doesn't bend for me. It doesn't do anything for any amputee, right? Okay. Any amputee is like, they're like, well, I'd rather have my leg back, or whatever. But it's still great technology. It's been it's helpful for me. There's a lot of good things that they do. We are behind on the upper extremity, right? Prosthetics. We've got to do a better job at that. We have to fund research with upper body extremities for hands and things like that. But it's really not that sexy. I mean, it's just really, I wear an Autobach C leg or an X3 now. You can Google it, and but it doesn't walk for me. And the ones that are motorized that kind of help you go upstairs, they're so heavy that you just sweat and they just fall off. Wow. So that's been, living in the South, that's one of my biggest problems is like the perspiration and trying to keep the thing on. So,
all right. Well, I want to go back to the internet, and I have something I want you to comment on. And this is your leadership team at Ignite.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's up to you, but number one, I really like the presentation of this site. I mean, there's a ton of websites, and every company has a different about page. I really like how sharp this looks, where it's all been kind of cropped out, and there's this nice PNG for each individual with a really nice background. But
yeah,
can you talk to me, however direction you want to take with your leadership team? Quick,
I'll give a plug for my friend Lauren Goins at the Bold Agency. Made this phenomenal designer, graphic designer, Lauren Goins, the Bold Agency. If you want to look that up in Huntsville, Alabama, she's phenomenal, does a great job. But because I gave Lauren kind of like, hey, she made our new logo, and I hope anybody that works with me knows I'm not a micromanager. I'm like, I think this.
Right.
This is the optics. I was like, I want big, spacious, global, spatial, all these things, right? And then she came up with this stuff, and I was like, I like that, right? Like, it's pretty. And I think everybody in my team knows that. And so I look at this page. Let me look over here.
Yeah, sure. Let me do that for you.
Yeah. So it's a ragtag group of mamma jammas right there. No, I'll start. I'll start Trent Poff. I've probably known Trent the longest. I met Trent when he was an accountant. Athens boy, our CFO literally has an MBA, a CPA. He's a certified forensic accountant, certified management accountant, certified something else. He's a freaking nerd, and I'll say that he's a nerd.
Money nerd.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But literally the only person I know who listens to YouTube finance briefs while doing finance on Excel, and then in Dell Tech doing cost point. I'm like, I don't even know how. Like, this is just, I want to punch you in your face. But it's been nice to see Trent grow into a leader, and we're the same age, and when I met him years ago, he was, he was an accountant. He didn't realize the type of knowledge that he had. He grew up in Canberra Corporation. If anybody knows, Canberra was bought by Huntington Ingalls. They were 2,400 employees. They had built this great reputation, and he grew up with that. Oh, by the way, he paid for college by roofing.
Really?
Okay. Nancy Koger, grew up with Boeing, Auburn grad, then spent 20 years as a senior VP at Intergraph. She's been with Ignite 8 years. She's our chief quality officer. Highly disagreeable person, engineer background, but also, I hope she doesn't mind, beat breast cancer. We all went through that with her, not as much as her family, but her leadership is paramount. Steve Stelk is the same. Been an Igniter for almost a decade. He's our senior VP and CIO, but been billing on contracts for a long time. Understands the Army, understands Logistics Data Analysis Center. Denise Groh grew up in Canberra Corporation with Trent. Trent brought her over. Understands what an employee-owned business can do for an individual, but she's now our chief admin officer and manages all things HR, finance, and we don't have problems. Gary Ridgway spent 21 years at Raytheon and a couple of years at another small company building communication systems and radar systems. Another engineer background, right? Risk averse, him and Nancy, risk averse, which creates good conflict in an organization. Rob Hamilton, former FBI senior executive, right, as a lieutenant colonel in reserves, also an Air Force nerd. He was the wing commander nerd, right, top of his class, but great guy and just out there solving problems. Dr. Joe Denoto, former state detective in New York, lost people in the World Trade Towers, pure patriot, national security lead for our team, and left Space and Missile Defense Command as a GS-15, come out to industry, and just solving really hard problems for Space Force and the intelligence community. Clarence Morris was I'm going to say this wrong, but used to check meters through college and
really?
Worked at defensive back at Alabama A&M. Check tape. He's the real deal. Worked his way up. He's got a lot of battle scars and has been with Ignite 7-8 years now. There's my wife. My CFO has hired her to do finance for us, and I'll leave it at that. Right, Melanie Kelly, formerly at Dynetics, and then proposal manager. Taylor Triggs, program manager, young lady, softball player at University of Alabama, Huntsville, pitcher. And then we've got Miranda coming up, our HR admin, still young and learning, and Chance, one of our program control analysts. But when I look at our team and what we have, I see a highly cohesive team of grinders. Chance, the last one there, Chance worked at a machine shop, worked through college. You've got a lot of people here. I mentioned my first job at 16, I was at Kroger, bag boy, and then at 17, I worked at the Windsock, which was in the Brazoria County Airport. And you got a lot of people that are not afraid to get their hands dirty and grind and work. And when you're a small business, when you're under 200 employees, you're not going to come in and have a staff. It doesn't work that way, right? Yeah. So I look at all these individuals, and the last thing I'll say about them is I have an extreme trust in all of them. Mm-hmm. And so they don't always solve problems the way I want them to, in a timeliness fashion that I want them to. And if they don't, I tell them, this is what I would do. This is my feedback. But we need it done. And I told them, when I took over 2.5 years ago as CEO, you get two things from me. You get, and they can all tell you this, you get an intent and you get a timeline. That's it, right? Now, come ask me. I'll tell you how I would solve a problem with you. Mm-hmm. But that's why you're in a leadership position. That's why I have this extreme trust in you, is because that's why you're here. Like, you don't need me to handhold you. That's why, as a small business, our program managers, our BU, business unit managers, our VPs, they run their own profit and loss statement. I would challenge you to find other companies that are our size or even a little bit bigger where their PMs manage their own profit and loss. Some do, maybe.
Sure.
But I don't know a lot of them. And the reason why we do that is because we're building an enterprise. You can't grow from 200 to 1,000 employees if you don't already have those processes and procedures in place, and you don't have the trust and the coaching and the education of, them understanding the variance on their financials, right? And I'll be honest with you, it's been painful. Some of our PMs, because they were never given that, right? So I'm asking somebody to do something they've never done in 30 years. They've never done it. So I've got to educate, coach, and train. And I turned 40 in 4 months.
Right.
Right. So some of my team is 60. Right. And they've never been disrespectful, but there's a age, right? A communication barrier. And so I go back to that respect. Respect is a two-way street. Some people, they don't do well with that. Right. Yeah. I respect you for what you're doing as my senior leader. You got to respect me, that you trust what I'm trying to build here.
Yeah.
Right. And that takes time. And I've had some of those people that are on that chart right there over time, past 2.5 years, have said, I guess you know what the hell you're talking about. Right. And I'm like, well, thank you. Like, I don't know how else to respond, but I've been trying to tell you this for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you're finally seeing it. The proof is in the pudding. The company is the strongest we've ever been in 21 years of business. We're financially good. We're growing. We're winning new business. And now we got a whole new set of problems, right? You're growing a business. Now you've got a whole new set of problems. So it's been it's a lot of fun.
Here's some commentary on that I've noticed. I have a little bit of a pet peeve when people just assume that someone that has 20 or 30 years of experience, they have 25 years of experience. Like, well, that probably just means that they're 25 years older than when they started.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they have the right experience.
Yeah.
And there's so many things now that didn't exist, even 5 years ago. Well, nobody has more than 3 or 4 or 5 years of experience in certain things.
Yeah.
And that's telling. And then when you're the company owner and you've been on contracts from day one, you've seen a lot. And like you're saying, it's great that your PMs have that profit and loss, because how else do you cut your teeth, right, and gain that experience and to get to the point where someone, no matter what the age, I know what I'm talking about.
Well, you create cynicism, might be the wrong word, but if my program manager has to call me to give somebody a $10 hourly raise,
right,
I'm subverting their leadership.
Right.
Right. And if their government customer has to call me to do a thing instead of the PM, where's the autonomy in the program manager? Why the hell are they there in the first place? Right. And so, I've tried to, that's what we've tried. That's what, I'm not saying it's what we've tried. That's what we've done at Ignite, is set that up to empower people. And you know what? Sometimes they get it wrong too.
Sure.
Right. And there's risk in that, but that's why, Ignite. So I'll give a selfless promotion here. We have almost 100-page Ignite program manager certification, program manager handbook. Okay. So all of our PMs are PMP certified, but Ignite program manager certification is about understanding CDRLs, contract deliverables.
Yep.
It's about understanding different contract type, firm fixed price, level of effort, all those things.
Yep.
You don't get that in the PMBOK. And the PMP is great. I'm not saying it's not, right? But specific to federal contracting, right? You have to understand different contract types, because if you do not understand the motivation behind what the government if you underspend a contract, you've now created more work for people, because that's the way the system's set up.
Right.
So we've spent a lot of time, and the training's not easy, and the test is not easy. And we set it up that way so that we can be harder on ourselves, right? What's the old famous adage, like, train harder than you fight.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're hard on each other. And if you saw the Ignite way that our team created, number one is dissent. We have an obligation to dissent with each other. Right. And then you also have, dissent is not disrespect. And you mentioned something about, which I wanted to hit on, but I met a person one time and they were like, well, this person has done this for a decade. They've done it for a decade. And I said, well, it's wrong. So let's start with that. Like, what they're doing is wrong. So either A, they have figured it out over a decade, which they haven't, or they've been doing it wrong for a decade. When it comes to the federal acquisition regulation, that's dangerous.
Yep.
Right? If you're miscounting in nickels and dimes, you could get yourself in a lot of trouble because you didn't spend the time to properly train people or make sure that you vetted the person so they were doing it the right way. But they've been doing it a decade. Great. And they've been doing it wrong for a decade. And that doesn't make it any better just because they've been doing it so long.
Right. The other, I don't know, it's always interesting to me too, like FTE, right? And or LOE and estimating. And so a lot of contracts, we would have small companies. Oh, we're going to give 8 weeks of leave. Well, guess what? As a PM, I'm basically estimating that your person will take 4 weeks of leave because they will work 1,900 hours on this contract. That's just the way it is. Now,
it's the way the contract.
We're judged up and down from that, but I really don't want to see your person on leave for 8 weeks because you have an obligation to us that you're going to fulfill the contract, which is 1,900 hours, which is give or take about 4 weeks of leave and holidays and whatever else.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important for people to learn that as soon as they can, that there's a lot behind just them sitting in their desks every day, right? From the standpoint of managing the contract and the dollars is extremely important.
Yeah, we had I won't get into too many details, but our organic growth at Ignite is done on the individual program basis, right? And when I came back to the company, it was 3%. And I said, 3% of what? Oh, just 3% revenue or whatever. I don't even remember the number. And I said, but some contracts are firm fixed price. Some are.
There's no escalation.
I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I went to look at their nominal budgets, which our CFO is so good. I already kind of knew what it was. And I finally had full fidelity for my, when I took over as full CEO, right? And I realized what they were doing was under budgeting hours, right? So if a NASA contract, you can only work 1880, not 1900 or 1920. They were actually putting in their budget 1840. And we weren't looking at that, right? And so what happens when you start to get above that, which is where you're supposed to be, your nominal budget, oh my God, we've hit 5% growth. We're 2% over organic growth. And I'm like, but it's bullshit. You're still under the 1880 that the contract says you're supposed to work. So, I'm going in the details, right? Because you've got to make sure you're not micromanaging, but you still got to get into the weeds of the details on some of these programs. Because if not, like you just said, we want to give everybody 100 days of leave. I'd love to do that too, man.
Yeah.
That would be great. But the contract does not allow us to do that.
Yeah.
So you've got to really understand. And other things, you got to have your processes and you got to train people so that they can catch those things and understand. Because I'm going to catch it. I'm going to find it. And then when I find it, then I start peeling back the onion and I'm like, okay, if I start finding one thing, guess what? Now I'm going to start, now I'm annoying you because now I'm digging more of your stuff and you don't want me to do that because then I'm going to find more stuff. So just do it right the first time and then we won't have this, right? We won't have this problems, right?
I don't know if you've had this problem yet, but one challenge, I think, as you become a medium or larger size company and you may have various different customers you support, it becomes difficult because now you have people who are really, they're on site, and they're specialists with that particular agency, the bureau, whatever it may be. And then they'll come to you and say, well, I want to get a raise because, at Mantech, it says I get this. And it's like, but that's Mantech. We run a program here where you're TSSCI full scope poly, and that's going to be one market. A CI poly is another market. Just CI is another, or just TSSCI is another, and on down to corporate folks. There is no, so I need you to understand that whatever you read, it's a good benchmark, perhaps, right? Or it kind of puts you in the ballpark, but you work in this market, and we're competing against these companies who are on similar contracts, right, with these customers at these rates, And that becomes difficult
Yeah.
at times to kind of educate people and try to understand apples and oranges.
Yeah, and sometimes they won't. Hey, one thing I forgot to mention, we have on your thing earlier. There's we have a new recruiter, Amanda Davis, who wasn't on there. So Amanda, shout out to you. Forgive me. I thought we had her picture up, but she was out there bowling with us.
Yeah.
So sorry about that, Amanda. We'll get that updated. But you know, it's about educating people, and it's about building a relationship with them. Right? It's easier to do it as a small company. Right, a larger business.
Sure.
If anybody at Mantech were to meet the CEO at a program, that's rare, right? But that's why I chose to work at a small business. That's why we run a small business, because I can build intimacy, right, with employees. And sometimes people won't get it. They're not going to listen. They're always going to be underpaid and overworked, right? And that's just some of those individuals. And, I always tell my wife, I'm like, I don't believe in stress. And I say that because I can only control what I can control. And I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm going out to sites, customer sites and employee sites as much as I can, while also managing the business, while also managing relationships, right, with new business, with bankers, with lawyers, with accountants, with tax, whatever the hell it is that you have to do. And so it's a constant, and you never get it right. You never get all of it right, right? And it's the same thing with communicating with employees, right? Like, I'm in this market, and I have a TS, I have top secret clearance, and therefore I should be paid X. I'm with you, but this contract was awarded 3 years ago.
Right.
The hyperinflation that we face today.
Right.
Right. Another one. As a company, we chose to just recognize Juneteenth. So now we have 11 holidays. Our contracts were awarded with 10 holidays.
Right.
Right.
You have to reprice the whole thing.
Yeah. So, by the way, completely support the Juneteenth holiday.
Sure.
Completely. But when President Biden waved a wand and said that, they didn't renegotiate every single federal contract or commercial contract.
Right.
Right. So some companies are getting backlash because they're like, we only have 10 federal holidays, because they were priced that way. They were awarded that way. And some of those companies do not have the financial means to just give you an extra day off.
Right.
And I know that some individuals look at it the same way with salary. Well, the salaries have changed. The contract was awarded 5 years ago, and things change, right? And without the government in our industry giving you an equitable adjustment, which they usually do that in their favor, not in our favor, right? It becomes it's a burden. And so it's just trying to communicate as best you can. And sometimes it doesn't work, but we try, right?
Yeah. So last time we played the pick six. Today we're going to play the quick six, which is just you answering a couple questions, or 6 questions. I shouldn't say a couple. All right, let me switch over. I think that's it. 1 second here. And here's the quick six.
Which way am I looking? I'll go.
You're going to look at here.
Okay, good.
I think, I don't have this isn't the internet. I've already written these down on my little handy
Okay. This isn't the interwebs. Got it.
I'm a product of a guy who lived in a skiff, so I still prefer paper and pen.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
All right. Next car or truck you want to own? What's on your list, man? Your next ride?
Oh,
personal vehicle.
I finally bought a new car. It's actually being delivered because I'm buying a Cadillac sedan. Okay. A CT5. Just a sedan. But I've had an Infinity for like 10 years, and I finally was like, it doesn't have remote start. So I was like, I need remote start because I have a plastic leg and it's hot, and so I need a remote start for the air conditioner. So
does it have cooled seats?
It has cooled seats. It has remote start. I was like, I'm not a huge car guy, but I was like, I like a sedan. I love a big. I used to have a big truck, but one leg can't get up in it that well, so I was like, I just need a sedan to zip around town.
Cadillac models are getting a little more sporty. Right?
It is. It's like one of the V models or something. You gotta ask my wife. My wife knows is all into cars, and I'm like, I don't know. But I drive with a left foot pedal, right? So I've got to have that installed afterwards. But yeah, just a Cadillac sedan, man. I'm a pretty simple.
So they moved the pedal over to the left side.
No, it's actually a pedal with a bar and then a rod. So all you bipeds with your 2 legs, you can just pop it out and you can still drive. with it, which is interesting. When I travel, I still rent a car. And so I have to practice because you all brake left, but I brake right now with my left foot. So I get in the car and I'm like, all right, 1, 2, and I have to practice. But yeah.
Okay. I noticed that Jaguar and I think Cadillac are coming out with some new styles. I think they're up in their game. All right. I think you made a comment in the past that you've traveled around the world several times.
Yeah.
Maybe 6 to 8 times to be exact.
Oh, yeah.
Next, when your kids are old enough, they're 7 and 10 now, I think you said. Let's say they're teenagers, so they can really appreciate it. Where's somewhere you've been where you can't wait to take the family?
Where I've been, where I want to take them?
Yeah. Like, man, I can't wait to bring my wife and my kids back to...
Ooh, so nowhere I ever went was where I want to take my family. India, Bangkok.
Okay.
None of that place. I'm trying to go to Paris next year.
Okay.
My grandfather was the commandant of the French Military Academy in World War II. I didn't know much about this until a couple years ago, but my grandmother's from Paris in World War II, and I still have family, the Thierry family. My grandmother's maiden name was Janine Thierry, and so I want to go to Normandy, and I want to take my children to Europe. I thought we would start with England and Ireland because they kind of speak English, right, like us, or broken English or whatever we speak. But I want to start taking them to Europe and really taking them to see historical. So I'm a big history buff, and I want them to start trying to enjoy all the history that is there in Europe as well. Because we've done a lot in America too. We've already taken our kids to a lot of historical sites in America.
Awesome. Roll Tide or War Eagle? I mean, I know you're a Texas guy, but...
So, beat Navy, but I went to the national championship this last year when, unfortunately, they lost to Georgia. But I'm more of a Roll Tide fan. I gotta be honest with you. My wife's a War Eagle, so I'm more Roll Tide.
I think I am too, but I'm afraid to wear like an Alabama shirt because I might lose some of my listeners.
Yeah, they're all going to call me bandwagon, but some of my best friends are Alabama fans, so I just kind of fell into the foray. And then when my buddy took me to the national championship in Indianapolis, he's a huge Alabama fan. I was running around Indianapolis, and it was freezing cold with his Alabama gear on, and all the Bulldogs were talking trash to us, but I didn't know any of the sayings. And I was like, are they talking to us? Like, oh, Roll Tide. Like, I had no idea what was happening. And I was like, let's do it. We're too old to get into a fight, but I'll shake my fist very angrily at them.
So Dr. Joe, who's sitting in the studio here with us again, I saw he had posted something on LinkedIn where you all had gone to a Pandas game.
Yeah.
And you were wearing an Ignite t-shirt. So when you go to a Pandas game,
yeah,
and you get to choose where you're sitting, what's your preferred seating arrangement there?
So we have a friend, Mike Wicks, and the Mike and Christine family, Wicks family, that have given us the suites. But I got to be honest with you, we've got company seats that are right behind the Trash Panda dugout.
Nice.
And they're the best. I mean, I love baseball. I love all sports. I love soccer / football and American football. You know, I love all sports. You know, some of these people are just so athletic, right? And when you see it in person, you're like, wow, how did they do that?
Yeah.
But I really enjoy the Trash Panda games, being behind the dugout, you know, and seeing it, you know, being close to the players. You know, now I guess I can call them a kid, right? Because they're in their 20s, but I enjoy being that close.
Second part. This is a 2-part question. What do you look forward to eating when you're at a Pandas game?
I try to eat healthy.
Okay.
So, but I'm a Champy's chicken guy.
All right.
So I don't get like all the hot dogs and stuff, but you can ask my teammates. I'm a nerd because I do all my own meal prep, and I eat like 5 ounces of boiled chicken with like rice and broccoli, and they're like, how do you eat that? And I'm like, I'm naturally a wide body, so I'm trying to eat healthy. But if you got fried chicken, I'm your man.
And when you come into the stadium, you don't have to go far because the Champy's thing is right there on the left.
Yeah. Well,
right?
The stadium's not super big, right? It's super intimate, so it's always pretty good. But I'm a Champy's chicken kind of gal. That's my go-to.
I agree with that. All right. So last time we talked a little bit about you being a middle linebacker at Angleton. But as your life goes on, there has to be one sports moment, and it can be from any age. Is there one thing you play back in your mind, a play, a highlight, where you every now and then like, oh man, that was awesome?
So everyone in Alabama will laugh at me, right? Every football-loving American. I mentioned my senior year, my buddies asked me to play goalie on the soccer team because the sophomore had failed a class or something. So the first 10 games, I was the goalie, and I didn't have to do anything because the team was so good. Right? I think I made like one save.
Right.
I did nothing.
Okay.
And so the district starts, which was I think another 10 games, and the coach comes up to me. So back in the day, I used to be kind of fast, and the coach is like, "Hey, you're going to play forward," and I was like, "What? I don't even know what that is." And so he's like, "You're going to just be big. You're 220.
Right.
You're 6 feet tall ish, almost." He's like, "Just run towards the ball, towards the goalie, and you'll like scare him, and he'll get out of the way." And I'm like, "That's terrible." Okay, but I'll do it. And I had no idea what I was doing. But the last game of the year, and I sucked. I was awful. I had 1 assist, and I scored 2 goals. But the second goal I scored was a header from a corner kick, and I scored a header against Brazos Port. Not Brazos Wood, but they still suck. Yeah. Brazos Port is in Freeport. They're awful too. I'm kidding. They're all good people. But I scored a header, and it clinched our district championship 3-1. And I'm pretty sure I was running around with my shirt off and just acting like a fool because I was so bad at soccer, but I don't know why. It was just, I guess because I knew I wasn't going to go anywhere with it. It was just the most free and the most fun I ever had. But scoring that header, because I'm pretty sure all of my teammates were like, "You are awful. This is never going to happen." And then I just jumped up and closed my eyes, and the thing went off my head and went in, and I was like, that's right. This was meant to be.
Let's go.
Yeah, just there's none of this looks like a soccer player, right? So it was a lot of fun. I have a lot of good memories from Angleton.
All right, so speaking of memories, maybe at Angleton, give me a teacher or a coach that you'd love to just go back and say thank you to them, that you never had that opportunity.
Well, I would say, okay, so my football coach in high school, Coach Wright, I did reach out to him and I told him thank you. But there's, years later, I realized what a good dude. He used to always say something. He was a bald guy, had a mustache, and white dude, and he would always say, I'm like the damn state of Missouri. Show me. Right? Don't say show me. I'm the show me state. God damn it. He would always say that. It was funny as hell, like when you're a kid, But Coach Wright was a great guy and a good mentor. And I don't think a lot of teachers and coaches really understand how much they help shape young people's lives.
Yeah.
I needed that in my life. But Coach Hortman was the offensive coordinator. There was a guy named Micah Davis who was my linebacker coach one year, who played ball at Southern Miss as a linebacker. But they were just good people, man, and they gave me direction. But I had I had a teacher named Karen Mott who was just a great mentor to me. I could go on and on, but those are the first names that stick out. And football was such a part of my life as a kid. That was my anger outlet, right? And then Karen Mott was my speech and drama coach, and just helped me out a lot as a kid. And I think they know it. I hope they know it. But I've reached out to some of them, not all of them. But they know that they nudged me in the right direction, and not just me. I mean, so many of them were nudging kids to, like, if they didn't have a good home life or whatever, but they were nudging them and like, hey, you can go be a truck driver for Coca-Cola. I remember that was Coach Wright's thing. Like, we had so many guys that ended up being truck drivers or whatever, and they were making good money, right? And maybe they went to a junior college, maybe they didn't, but these dudes were able to start families and provide for families and be good, productive members of society when they came from maybe, broken homes or wherever they were living or whatever. They help these, they're grown-ups now, right? But they just help these kids kind of find some direction and become good, productive members of society. And that's, that's all you can pray for, right? So,
Clay, it's been an honor, man, having you here.
No, thanks. I'm glad I could come back and and help. I have on my black patch hat.
Yeah.
I didn't wear. There you go. Yeah,
you want to talk about that and plug that a little bit?
No, just stop by Black Patch Distilling Company, making whiskey and bourbon and rye, and orale is our. We can't call it tequila, but it's 100% Mexican blue agave, and our heat cinnamon whiskey. And go visit my dad and my sister, and they're in there hand making everything, and they'll give you a tasting. And
where's that located?
It's right here in Madison, Alabama. Over. Oh, I'm gonna mess up the address now. Oh dear God. Lanier Road, behind a Walmart. It's in like an old cotton warehouse. But 500 Lanier Road, right behind a Walmart in Madison, Alabama. So stop by and, tastings every day from, noon till 6 p.m. And then weekends, we're only open Saturdays from like 2 to 7. And we've got a bar. You come in, my dad will make you a mixed drink. They don't let me make drinks. I'm heavy-handed. They don't let me pour them anymore, but, yeah, stop by Black Patch Distilling Company. It's a lot of fun, and everything's handmade with love. So
absolutely.
But thanks for having me, Troy. I greatly appreciate it.
Any final shout outs or wisdom you want to impart upon our audience?
Wisdom. I have none. The only thing I can say, and work hard, never quit. Yeah. That's been my motto for a long time. It's like you're going to get a lot of roadblocks, and a lot of people tell you shit you can't do. And it's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself that you can do it. And so that's my simple motto: work hard, never quit, and just keep pushing forward. So that's all I got.
I'm going to share this with you today. It's something. There's a guy named Pat McNamara. He's in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
He's the kind of guy that will give you like 50 workouts on a tree. Right? He's a really simple guy, or use cinder blocks, kind of a farm boy approach. He was on Rogan a while ago, but he was talking about. He said, Joe, there's 3 reasons you work out. There's only 3 reasons you should work out and stay in shape and all that. Because 1, save your own life if you had to. 2, save the life of someone else if you had to. And 3, just kick someone's ass.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
And Joe's like, well, what about like the 4th? And like, no, just those 3. It's not about, but you think about it, like, and part of it is that, can you save your own life? And can you save someone else's life? And those are things that motivate me at times, just to,
Well, I think, I hate to say this, but there's so much of that's true, because we've got a modern society that's so pampered.
Yeah.
Right. And we've lost a lot of survival instincts as people. Right. And I enjoy talking about entrepreneurship and our company and stuff like that. But I told you, I don't know if I mentioned last week, I wake up about 4:30 or 5 every day and I go work out.
Yep.
Right. I don't post it on social media, but it's a part of my life, because I've got to challenge myself every day to stay fit and motivated and all that. But it's an energy, right? It helps me get to bring my chi in. I don't know what that means, but we live such a soft life in America, and so many people have lost. The biggest thing is perspective.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned before about the 1 million people I saw living in the Ganges River in India. And, that if that doesn't affect you, if you don't see extreme poverty when you go to certain places, I took my kids to Costa Rica this past year. And when we were traveling through the mountains to get to the rainforest, I made sure that I was talking to my girls about, this is how some people live here.
Yeah.
Right. They don't have running water. Right. And we're staying in this villa, this Italian villa on the coast or whatever. It's beautiful. Right.
Yeah.
Punk ass kids. They don't know what hard is. Right. But I'm doing everything I can to make sure I'm raising non-victims. Okay. They're non-victims, but they also have perspective about what other people are going through, because that helps. What's the word? They have perspective and empathy. Yeah. Right. Look at it from somebody else's point of view. But so many Americans, I don't know that guy. Right. And Rogan's got a lot of great guests on there, but we don't have perspective. We don't have empathy for others. Oh, they disagree with me on their life view. That's fine. That's okay. Like, just, but you shut your mouth and listen. Right. So many of us wait to talk and don't listen first. Right. So I need to get my opinion out. Why don't you shut up first and listen to like what they're telling you, and then go, well, hell, I never looked at it that way. right? Because I didn't grow up in inner city Chicago.
Yeah.
I grew up in small town Texas.
Right.
I didn't grow up in inner city Philly or San Francisco, or I didn't grow up in the plains of Wyoming or whatever. I don't know what they call it, the plains, but I've got my small little view of where I came from, right? And I want to talk to people and hear what they have to say, because that's what, right? But I'd agree with that. And I think working out and all that stuff, getting your physical exertion out helps you kind of test yourself and see what you're made of, right?
Hey, just make sure tomorrow when you leave, you don't take a right to Research Park. You take a left to go to the gym.
Yeah, I will. Trust me. I've learned that lesson. So.
All right, buddy. Hey, thanks a lot.
Yep.
Hopefully you have back you on in the future.
Yep.
Right?
Love to help.
Appreciate the support.
Thanks, man.
All right. Have a good one.